Thank you, Dean Wiltsius, distinguished faculty and staff. Fantastic and fabulous class of 2017, and your families for affording me this great honor. Graduates, how does it feel to be graduating from a powerhouse institution? I am proud to be a UCSB alum who, like you, also lived in IB and ate lots of Woodstock pizza. I am also a UC baby and UC mom. Let me explain. Towards the end of my graduate studies at UCLA, my first son, Austin, was born. He was literally born one floor beneath the lab I worked in. My son and I have in common that we were both born at UC hospitals. In a way, I owe my US citizenship to the UC system. I was born an anchor baby before the term was ever coined. Both of my parents are Colombian. However, I'm an American citizen because my mom hid her pregnancy when entering this country and stayed until I was born at UCSF. We went back to Colombia soon after, but after a few years, my parents divorced. As a single mother, my mom decided to return to America to give me a better life. Once here, Mom met a Japanese American who fell in love with her at first sight. They got married and my stepfather adopted me. So that's how I came to have a Japanese surname while remaining 100% Colombian, like the coffee. My new dad is career military and has served in 3 wars: World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. At first, he was barred from service. As a Japanese American during World War II, he was classified an enemy alien, despite having been born here. And he was also incarcerated at the Manzanar internment camp. Nevertheless, as soon as he could, he volunteered to fight for his country. With regard to his parenting style, let's say if you have an Asian parent, you feel me. If you have a parent who served in the military, you feel me. Now synthesize the two and you get my dad. Needless to say, the home life drama I grew up in was not the usual mother-daughter fights. No, Mom and I never fought. Instead, Dad and I were always the ones fighting, and the #1 thing we fought about was that my dad insisted I had to be perfect. Only when I was grown was I able to appreciate that Dad had been so hard on me because he wanted me to be a fighter and a survivor. And there have been moments when I've had to come out fighting. I used to believe all I had to do was work really hard and be very good at my job. And as such, I would be justly rewarded. Turns out life doesn't always work that way. Imagine being incredibly passionate about what you do, so you work tirelessly and devotedly and make many personal sacrifices. One day, the CEO personally acknowledges your hard work and effort by calling you a linchpin for the organization and gives you the biggest raise of your career. Then, exactly 5 weeks later, the same CEO fires you. And when I say fires, I don't mean the gentlemanly way of coming to an agreement and allowing you to gracefully resign. I mean the mortification of being summoned in front of the CEO, told you aren't needed anymore, promptly walked to your car, and told you are forbidden from ever stepping foot at the company again. I guess it could have been worse. I could have found out I was fired by CNN. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. I'm not going to pretend I didn't cry for a week straight after being fired. On about day 8 or so, my husband looked over at me sniffling on the couch and said, "Okay, that's enough. Pull yourself together and get over it." And Todd, you were right. That's my husband, Todd, over there. He really... He really wants to get on video the part where I say that he was right. And I'm sure there's a lot of husbands out there wishing they could get video of their wives saying they were right. In the grand scheme of things, while I no longer had a job, I still had my health and the support of my family and friends. Being fired for doing some of the best work of my career was the catalyst that made me start my own biotech company. And my husband was 100% supportive. Then 5 months later, he lost his job too. Yeah, so not only does life like to blindside you, it then kicks sand in your face when you are down. But we weren't down for long. I like to say that my husband and I are a tight-knit couple. Not only do we exercise together, we go on unemployment together. I think that most other couples with a Bay Area mortgage and 2 kids to support would have shelved their entrepreneurial spirit and done the more reasonable and responsible thing, gotten real jobs, but not us. The point is, there is never a perfect time to embark on a great adventure, whether it be getting married, writing your first novel, traveling the world, or starting your own company. If you have a list in your head of all the things that must happen before you take the leap, you will be paralyzed by insecurity and fear. You risk missing out on the most meaningful and relevant opportunities in your life. In retrospect, I'm glad I didn't wait until later in my career to launch a biotech startup. Saying you work 24/7 has become a platitude, but it was practically my reality when we started Acerta. Had I waited until I was older, I fear I might have lacked the stamina to see it through. To misquote Mark Twain, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. That's right, I said misquote, because apparently Mr. Twain didn't say that. What he did say was, one cannot have everything the way he would like it. A man has no business to be depressed by a disappointment anyway. He ought to make up his mind to get even. As UCSB graduates, you already possess the drive and dedication you will need to succeed in life. On your way, pay attention to the positive impact you are making on the lives around you. Because when the long road to success gets tough, finding inspiration along the way can provide the motivation to keep going. Starting a biotech company was one of the hardest things I've ever done, physically and emotionally. But I went on, partly because I knew we were developing a life-saving medication, and partly because when Austin's friends were telling your mama jokes, he silenced them by saying, my mother cures cancer. Meanwhile, my 10-year-old son Lucas was telling his friends that his parents were job creators. In other words, knowing my sons were bragging about me to their friends was incredibly motivating. And now I get to brag about Austin, as he'll be a freshman at UCSB this fall. Acerta was founded by 2 Dutch colleagues, Allard and Geerd, and 3 Americans, myself, the Latina anchor baby, Ahmed, born and educated in Egypt, and Francisco, born in America of Filipino descent. I believe that due to the different backgrounds of our founders, our company attracted and hired individuals of different races, ethnicities, and nationalities. As a result, Acerta is like a mini United Nations, with employees from as far away as Eritrea. Embarrassingly, I didn't even know Eritrea was a country until interviewing one of our earliest employees. This potent mix of humanity accomplished several unprecedented feats, In less than 3 years from inception, the company took a preclinical molecule into over 20 clinical trials for the treatment of various cancers and garnered a publication in the New England Journal of Medicine. The journal is one of the oldest and most prestigious peer-reviewed medical journals, and it publishes impactful clinical results. For organizations out there that do not believe it's important to have diversity at the executive level, the success of Acerta speaks for itself. For me, Acerta represents the power of the American dream. I stand before you, the offspring of an immigrant single mother, raised in a small town by two parents who only had high school educations. Despite our humble circumstances, they impressed on me over and over the American idealism that my father fought in 3 wars to preserve. This is America, and you can be anything you want. Now, I know that in today's digital age, we're constantly bombarded with the turmoil facing this nation. These problems can overwhelm us. They can fill us with worry, hopelessness, and worst of all, cynicism. But don't despair. As long as we've had graduates in this country, they have faced daunting and difficult times. They graduated into the American Revolution. They graduated into the Civil War. They graduated into World War I, the Great Depression, World War II. They graduated into the social upheavals of the 60s, the Civil Rights Movement, Women's Rights Movement, the Vietnam War. And they graduated into the Great Recession. Out of our greatest struggles have come our greatest achievements. As I look out at you and feel your energy and enthusiasm, I'd like to leave you with the immortal words of Tupac Shakur. Remember one thing. Through every dark night, there's a bright day after that. So no matter how hard it gets, stick your chest out, keep your head up, and handle it. Congratulations, class of 2017. I look forward to living in the future you create. Thank you.